Hi, and welcome to another edition of Six String Corner, where in this episode I'm going to be talking to you about Rick Graham's album, Inside Out. Rick Graham's an English guitarist, very, very mind-blowing player to listen to and to watch. His technical prowess is just exceptional. You can really see how much time he has dedicated in his life to honing his craft. And although he is a rock electric guitar player now, and was when he first started to learn to play, he spent a chunk of time where he went and studied at the Guildhall School of Music in London. I might have got the name wrong, but you get the idea. Where he studied classical guitar for a while, and you can really appreciate how great a range of skill and different techniques he has, and how he's brought that classical element back into rock guitar, or electric guitar playing, as he moved back towards that. And this really is the culmination of his journey, his development as an artist, as a musician. He did release an EP a few years before this. But this is the first, fully fledged album. 9 tracks. It is 2010, so it's a few years old now. At the time that I'm filming this, God knows when you're watching this. And I was very fortunate in that I got to see Rick perform this entire album with just his guitar, an amp, and a backing track in some guy's living room with like about 20 other people. So very, very close, personal, intimate, just fantastic really. And it was the moment that inspired me to pick up the guitar again for the umpteenth time, but to actually go a step further and take lessons, which is something I'd never ever done. And just that moment in time, that performance, listening to him talk, meeting him afterwards, was very inspirational for me as an individual. And I think probably many of the people who follow him, he has a fantastic website, fantastic YouTube channel. You can also follow him through Facebook. He's constantly sticking out little video performances of either him just improvising or demonstrating a lick. Rick's quick but slick licks. He's one of his trademark little videos. He also, it's just an absolute dearth of material, educational material, lessons, tuition, that he puts out on a very regular basis. And yeah, he's very, very captivating to watch, to listen to, as a tutor, but also an artist to appreciate his music. Now, although there's only 9 tracks on this album, which is, for some people that might be considered short, but it's the quality in them that really sells it. And all 9 of them are fantastic pieces. And some people some people recognise Rick for his ability to play those quick passages. But that's not what Rick's about. He has that tool in his box of tricks. He's able to do that if he wants to, if he feels or thinks that it actually adds something to the performance. But I can remember listening to Rick talking to us all after his recital about how he's much more interested in listening to, say, someone perform a nice long sustained piece of vibrato than he is about how quickly you could play, you know, an arpeggio, or, you know, anything else really, because it's all structured, it's got no feel. You have to put the feel into it. You have to bridge that gap from making the notes to making music, and whether that's using the instrument as an extension of your emotion, thought, soul, and getting that message that's in your head as a musician, across to those who are listening. You know, bridging that gap, creating that bond, is much more important than how quickly you can play a passage of music. Technique is there because you need to have the ability to play accurately so that you can put across the message that you're trying to convey. You know, there are guys out there who have, and I don't like to say this in a bad way, but take Jimmy Page for example. That guy's got so much feeling in his music, and it's so wonderful to listen to. But you would not say that Jimmy is a technically accurate player. All of his performances will be a little bit different. You know, he might shape or bend a note slightly differently from repetition of the performance, you know, from one gig to another. And you know, some people call that sloppy. I don't. It's a performance. It's an expression of their music that they've created, that they're giving and sharing with us. And Rick is not a sloppy player, but he's someone who's able to have that technical prowess, that ability to have a great range of different tricks and tools in his box, but he also has that soulful playing that really does build that connection with the audience. You know, you do get drawn into the music. And I remember him telling a little story about one of the tracks that's on this album, and I think it was the song Just a Dream. And he was talking about where he got the inspiration for that song, which was that one day he came into some piece of knowledge, you know, whether he found it on the net or in a newspaper or whatever, I'm not sure. But he was talking about an actress who'd been in a TV program that he'd watched when he was growing up called Different Strokes, which was a very popular sitcom from the late 70s, early 80s, made in America. And there was a young girl who was part of the family structure of that show. And she had left the show. They had basically got rid of her because she'd got pregnant and decided, you know, that she wanted to have a child. God, such a terrible thing to do. So they wrote her out of the show and sacked her. You know, and her life came a little frayed and unglued, and things didn't quite go so well for her for a long period of time. And he then discovered that she died. I think she passed away mid-30s, something like that. Must be around 99, you know, sort of end of the 90s, that sort of time frame. And there was a lot of, how can I put it, greyness about what had actually been the cause of her death, the circumstances. People were very quick to judge. You know what press are like, they're just animals. They'll twist anything to sell a newspaper or make a story. And I think, this is just my interpretation from the story that Rick told us, was that from that he realised that there was this person that he'd watched when he was growing up as a kid on TV, but yet the reality of that person and their life and how things had turned out for them was nothing like the projection of the image that he had absorbed as a child watching TV. And so the song Just a Dream came from that inspiration, on reflecting on how his perception of her, and you know, other people around the world's perception of personalities is just a dream, because we never really know them. We only know the image that they project, or their publicists decide to project, and the media decide to, you know, put out there. And it was quite an interesting little story to understand how an artist like Rick had been inspired by a piece of information, you know, a story about someone, and then used that to develop a song. And it's a very beautiful piece of music. I'd highly recommend listening to it. I was lucky enough to get a copy of this album at the recital, and I got him to sign it, which is really cool. I like signatures, I said that last time. This one's coming out, it's sort of card format with the CD inside. I know if you go onto Rick's website, you can get copies of this album in a dual CD case, so you can get it that way. I think you can get this album via download as well. I'll have to check that out again. And I would highly recommend it. You know, if you like instrumental guitar work, you've got to listen to Rick. He is one of the shining lights of his generation, of, you know, one of the great artists of this decade that we're in now. I really hope that he finds enough inspiration and the time, with all of the other things that he's involved in, to produce another piece of original material. Because this is just beautiful. But he's very much an individual artist as well. I'm not really too aware of him, you know, getting involved in band projects and playing, you know, like session musicians like Phil X do. You know, they play for lots of different artists. He's very much about doing his own thing, and that's very cool. That's just as valid and relevant as any other way to get a living out of the music industry, be an artist, hone your craft, develop your craft. I would, if you like shred guitar, if you like instrumental music, if you're a player and you want to listen to other great musicians, you should get this album. If you want to tap into in styles or skills as a guitar player that you've probably not really broached, coming from, say, you know, a sort of classic rock background or blues background. Go and have a look at Rick's website, his YouTube channel. Follow him on Facebook. There's a ton of material out there that, you know, just watching a few of his little instructional lessons, which are only a few minutes long, and then taking that and putting it into practice will just open up your box of tricks as a guitarist to a whole nother level. He is a fantastic artist. I know you probably keep hearing that from me, but then I don't tend to buy stuff and then want to tell you about stuff I don't like. I'm not going to do that. It's pointless. I'm going to tell you about the things that I think are great. This is one of them. If you're a musician who's into his gear and acquisition of gear, then you probably know of Rick. Rick's is, I'm not sure, it's kind of blurry at the moment because I know he's just acquired a very, very rare Ibanez guitar, which is just gorgeous to look at. Plays and sounds fantastic as well. I think he's still a Shure guitar artist, and Shure makes some fantastic instruments if you've got deep enough pockets for them. And amps. I know Rick performed at NAMM a couple of years ago. That's pretty impressive. He performed at Music Mess as well, over in Germany, which is like the major sort of gear exposition for musical instruments and recording and amplification for Europe. That's the big one. And he's performed there as well. Yeah, check Rick out. He's fantastic. Thank you for watching. Next time, I will be reviewing an album which has yet to arrive. I'm waiting on 3 other albums to come in the post, and they're a bit slow. One of them's by Phil X and the Drills. And I know Phil's been filling in for Richie Sambora with Bon Jovi a little bit of late, so it might be why it's been a bit slow to arrive. I'm also waiting on Dorje's EP, Primordial Chronicle, I believe it is, which should be arriving any time in the next couple of days. That should be an interesting little insight into what is to come from them. And they're a British band who have just been working at their material, and they'll be getting an album out hopefully within the next 9 to 12 months. But I also have another little album which I've acquired recently. I'm not going to show you really what it is. It's that. That's the back of it. That's what you're going to see. I had a little agreement that I would not review this yet. But I've got nothing else here. All these other things are stuck in the post somewhere. And I don't want to keep you guys waiting too long. And I'm torn. I might have to review this one. So I might have to break that little promise I had with a friend of mine. But this is a fantastic album. It needs reviewing. But that's Rick Graham. I will put a link below to his website and his Facebook page and his YouTube channel, and I thoroughly recommend checking him out. He's a fantastic player. Really, really great player. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.